What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We have finally made it close to the end of this format. No more Suicune, Greninja, no more Giratina. After a week, we will be getting Mega Pokemon. But with there being a week left, we definitely want to go over the tier list so you guys have the best chance to make it into Master Ball. Or if you're playing in tournaments or whatever, hopefully we could guide you with this tier list. And that being said, this is going to be the final tier list of this meta. And we have the homie Sek. He's fellow Pokemon TCG content creator.
Yo, what's up, guys? Just like Ericko said, I'm a fellow content creator. I usually focus on the competitive side of the game. That usually means I participate in the top 1000 grind, and I also participate in tournaments. One of my biggest achievements is being the best Venusaur player, and I'm very grateful for Ericko asking for this collab.
If you haven't checked out his channel, go check it out, give him a sub, and let's get started on this tier list. Alright, so we are starting with the first deck, Flareon EX. Sek, give us your thoughts on this deck.
So I always thought Flareon is low-key a scam deck. I always kind of thought it was high roll. After playing it a little bit more, this deck actually has like pretty decent consistency because not only do you have 4 EVs, you also have Find a Friend, which is really good. I don't know where you would personally put it, dude, but in my personal opinion, because it can be really good against everything in the meta besides Suicune, I kind of think it's in that nice high tier spot.
Yep. It is definitely a high tier contender. It has great potential against Giratina. It has good potential against, you know, other decks like Silvally and almost like you said, everything in the meta out there. It does struggle a little bit with Suicune, but at the same time, you have EV Bag and you're attacking for 130, which makes, you know, the whole matchup a little bit easier. The only thing that really would hurt you is them hitting Greninja on curve. So, but overall, I would say that matchup, it's somewhere like in the 45 through 65. I wouldn't percent win, but like I don't know where you would put it at.
Yeah, I think the match for Suicune is probably like maybe 55 to 60% in the Suicune favor. It kind of depends if they get that giant cape fast, or like you said, if they end up carving into the Greninjas, just because, you know, Greninja is one of the most broken cards against baby Pokemon. But going second, Flareon with either EV Bag and Red, and they don't have a second Suicune to be able to build around, you probably just easily win that matchup. And that's not even including if they maybe like Brick Froakie active going first, where they have to waste that energy to actually retreat. Flareon can easily just like steamroll any deck, and like you said, very good in the Giratina and just most decks in the format.
Yeah, and overall, this is a ladder deck, right? You're playing games, you're in and out with the deck, and that being said, you get quick victories, and you have good matchups against the 2 best decks, and that's why I think it's a solid A tier.
I 100% agree, dude. Fast games, you either lose fast or you win fast, and that's the best way with the win streaks. Alright, for our next deck, dude, we have one of my favorite cards in the game. It's going to be the pure Decidueye deck, being just honestly just 2 Rowlets, 2 Decidueyes, both the EX and the non-EX card. So it's kind of funny because Decidueye was very meta relevant in Celestial Guardians, and it basically saw no play ever since. However, because of the bench snipe power plus, you know, Erica and Lily, this is honestly, it might be the best Suicune counter that we actually have in the game, as long as you can draw correctly. Erica, where would you personally place this on your tier list?
Well, honestly, I feel like this deck right here is really slept on. It's really good into like playing into Oricorio when you play the baby version of Decidueye, because you're dealing 70 damage to the bench, and you can stack up on points really fast, and all of your Decidueyes are literally living forever, just like Sek mentioned. And that being said, you know, in decks like where you see Daycare or anything where they expose, you know, low HP Pokemon on their bench, you could take advantage of that as well. Or for the Giratina matchup, it's pretty good. You're attacking super effective damage into Darkrai. Not only that, you could put damage and pressure on Giratina on the back row, because the thing is, they're not going to attack your Rowlet in the beginning, so they have to spend time charging up. So Giratina is also a good match. My personal opinion, I also think it might fall into A tier. The only reason I'm saying A tier, it's one of those decks where it's quick. If you brick, you bricked, right? Unlike Charizard, right? Charizard doesn't have a counterpart like a baby variant of it where it could snipe Oricorios or, just push for game when it comes to EX Pokemon that are benched with high HP. He does have a baby variant, but you need invest 4 energy, and he has very low HP, not comparable to Decidueye. Not to mention, we have supporter cards like Erica, Leaf Cape, and Lily. Lily is amazing for making Decidueye live for a long time. So that's my thoughts. Let me know if you agree, Seth.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I agree. Obviously, exactly like you said, because you have both the EX one being able to do 100 damage to the bench, it could be very good in the matchups such as Darktina when they are trying to charge up, that Giratina for 130. Obviously, the 70 damage one for the non-EX easily destroys these electric decks, because like electric decks all hit for low damage besides Arceus, which is like that pseudo electric type. So like one Erica and one Lily basically erases their whole turn. The only problem I have with putting Decidueye in high tier is I think other decks in high tier are kind of better than it. I do think Decidueye is really good because it can counter stuff like, obviously Suicune, and then other matchups, if you do get the Decidueye fast. I just don't know, because the consistency is lacking, because you basically are praying to just draw Rare Candy or the Dartrix by turn 2. I don't know, because it's super inconsistent, we should put it in maybe like something like mid tier, or if there's like a in between of like A and B, basically we could put it in between, because like, is Decidueye as good as something like Flareon, and then the other stuff in high tier is basically my question.
Yeah, if there was an in-between tier, I would say we put it there, but for the simple fact, I guess we could put it in B tier.
All right, so B sounds good to me.
Perfect. Next up, we have Buzzwole, the classic Buzzwole deck with Celesteela and Formosa. Not so much the Kartana. Reason being is you want to abuse the Cyrus and just, Cyrus everything out and hit with Buzzwole. So I'm just gonna be real with this deck. It has fallen off so hard because Suicune kind of just bullied this deck out of the metagame, and with Suicune Greninja being around, this deck really isn't as valid. It plays well into everything else. Before I put a placement, let me get your thoughts on Buzzwole.
Yeah, so I think even in my last tier list at the end of Secluded, Buzzwole was like one of the hardest ones for me to rate, because just like you said, it's bad in the Suicune, but theoretically it's actually good in the everything else in this meta, because Pheromosa is extremely broken against these baby Pokemon, being able to 2-tap them, snipe something on the bench. And it's weird because in ranked, Buzzwole is basically non-existent. You might find maybe one a week, if not like 2, but at least in Secluded Springs, like if you theoretically have no Suicunes in a bracket path, like Buzzwole did win a tournament. So it's like so weird the place. I don't think it's that good, because like I said, that Suicune matchup is so bad. Or at least in Wisdom, Buzzwole like was bad in the Espeon, but there was lines to be able to win. Where like 90% of the time, if a Buzzwole player runs on the Suicune, as long as that Suicune player doesn't brick, that Buzzwole is probably taking that L. So I would probably put in mid tier just because it is everything, or like good against everything but Suicune. But because I don't think it's as bad as the low tier decks, but I don't know about you.
Now, I do agree with you in the mid tier, and here's the reason why. I've been seeing people play in top 100, and randomly in top 100, they'll just be Buzzwole decks just popping in there. And the reason why they're popping in there is because in top 100, you are seeing a lot of Darktina, and the deck still plays really well into the Darktina matchup. So that being said, it's still viable. It depends on what you're seeing on the day, if you're playing on the ladder. So yeah, that's the reason why I would say I agree.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's also like theoretically really good into these electric decks, which we are seeing a lot of now. So it's definitely like a deck that you could like pick in maybe like specific time zones when you are facing like a bunch of like, maybe dark decks or electric decks. So I think mid tier is definitely like a fine placement.
Right.
Next up, dude, we have one of the most fan favorited cards, at least in the actual games. If you're a poker player, you probably hate it, dude. We have Stoke Charizard. This is going to be the Cleffa variant that we actually ended up seeing. I'm pretty sure it ended up winning a tournament. If not, there's like 3 in top 8. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it did win a tournament. But anyways, what are your thoughts about the deck? Because I have some stuff I could definitely say about this.
So yeah, the deck definitely won the tournament. The deck is amazing. It was a great meta call when it first popped up. It definitely has given me multiple win streaks on the ladder, as you guys probably saw on my live streams or when I posted the video on it. But that being said, Clef just makes everything, the lines, so much more consistent, and you play double repel to deal with the Oricorios, and not only that, you have Charmeleon that could definitely attack. I'm not gonna say it's super unwinnable, but you still got a chance if there's 2 Oricorios. Now, that being said, the deck, I will place it, I would have to say it's like somewhere around the mid tier. Now, here's why. Because the simple fact, Clef fixes your hands and everything, but as it started showing up, more hand disruption and more Oricorios being mained in main decks have been appearing because the deck was being like super dominant for a short period of time. So the meta had to, balance out and, rearrange itself. That's why you saw decks, randomly pop up with double Oricorio where you would least expect it. What are your thoughts, Seth?
So I think I agree with everything you say. I personally don't play Stoke Charizard at all. So, most of the playtesting is on your end, but I've also, seen you play. And I think I agree mid tier. I actually have a tier in between high tier and mid tier, which is literally called Solitaire, because Stoke Charizard is the best card in the game if you draw a turn 2 and you're not facing an Oricorio. But I think overall, like if we're being like 100% realistic and I'm not like memeing on my tier list with that tier, I would probably agree mid, because some games you win by turn 2 and then some games you lose double Ori, or you just never find rare candy and lose.
Nah, I definitely agree. We are definitely putting that on my list, B tier, mid. Now, that being said, this is a good segue into Sylveon Charizard. So basically what the Clef version does, it fixes that inconsistency where, sometimes you draw Sylveons and you see no EVs, or vice versa, right? The thing is, you have to commit to the field, and committing to the field in a Suicune format is the worst thing you could do, especially when you're versing the Suicune player, because here's the thing, Suicune is hitting you for plus 20, and by the time you get Charizard, realistically, most of the time they're gonna have that Greninja, unless you're like, you hit turn 2 curve, but other than that, I feel like the EV Sylveon is just way too slow, and you just gotta adapt. And for that reason, in this format, I would put it in C tier cope, because I just don't see it being viable against the Suicune matchup.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree. Like the downside is like if you need to sacrifice a Pokemon, like let's say you either sacrifice an Eevee like for finding a friend, or you just have 2 Charmanders. The problem with Sylveon is as soon as they get that first KO, especially in a Greninja format, that Sylveon is not benefiting you with the +2, it's actually benefiting the Suicune player. Because as soon as they get 1 KO, dude, they don't even care about a Stoke Charizard. All they are looking for is that Cyrus to be able to pull that thing in and just win the game. We kind of saw the same liability back when, Buzzwole Pheromosa. And obviously Greninja is 20 times better than Pheromosa, because, you don't have to actually have it in the active spot. So I kind of agree, dude. I think it's like a D tier deck. At the end of the day, it's Stoke Charizard. It could just pop off. But it's not as good as the Cleffa one. So probably like D tier is why I would agree also.
Correct.
Okay, so for the next deck, we actually have Tapu Koko Oricorio. This one is traditionally played with a 1 Pikachu EX, the one that does 150 blast. And this is a deck that has definitely been way more meta relevant in the last week. I think one of the players that popularized this deck was actually Corndog in a tournament, running 4 hand rips, double red card, double silver. And if you guys are like subbed to my channel, you guys know I don't like electric decks. I will say I do think this is the best electric deck, because it is actually, with the double Oris, it's actually really good in like the top 3. Not so much Suicune, but it's really good against actually Guzz and Darktina if you draw the correct lines. Sometimes Suicune's just the best deck. It will be able to destroy you. But with the double hand rip, it's extremely annoying for like everything below it. I personally would probably put it around the same level as Flareon, because the going second Tapu can destroy something like Suicune, but it has just really good matchups into basically everything else in the meta.
Yeah, pretty much I do agree with what you said. The thing is with this deck is really fast, really impressive. You play 2 Oricorios, you can stall out all the, top meta decks with it. You're hitting, 20 plus damage on water types. So I really do think this is just a very solid beatdown deck, as you would put it, or rush if you're coming from other card games. I would say it's a very solid A tier deck. It plays well in the ladder, and it also, racks up a lot of win streaks. I could personally say that I've been there and experienced the multiple win streak bonuses from this.
Yeah, I've also been on the receiving end where I've been playing Guzz and then I had to face like 10 of these in 1 day. And let me just tell you, dude, because we're only playing like 17 trainer Guzz, which we will get into obviously later, it is miserable. It is absolutely miserable facing this deck.
Pikachu for game just feels so good.
Yeah, dude. And like you always have to worry if you don't have a bench sniper, that Pikachu, bro, as soon as they get a first KO, that's all they care about seeing.
Facts.
It's very obnoxious. At the end of the day, it is an electric deck, so it's not it's not like super strong. It's just, it's just very good. It's just very decent. It's not bad, and it's not overly like overtuned. So yeah, I think like high tier is perfect for it, because it's definitely better than stuff like the Decidueye Buzzwole.
Alright, so we're getting into Raichu and Magnezone. So this deck right here, I'm just going to take you guys back to a month before. This deck was really solid. Magnezone was performing with Raichu, and you played double Cyrus, Cyrusing in anything, NEX Pokemon, whether it be Darkrai, Suicune, or the Greninja to get rid of the Greninja threats, anything like that, or the Froakies I meant to say. But the deck, even though you're getting a draw, it's kind of slow now. Like, it took a couple of weeks within the first month of this meta for people to figure out how to play around this deck, and I wouldn't call it as strong as it first came out because it was performing last month, but this month it had very subpar, tops or streaks. So that being said, with the new adjustments of every other deck, I feel like it's being outsped in a lot of categories. But let me know what you think about the deck set.
Yeah, so if you guys know, bro, I actually think Raichu is absolutely trash. So yeah, this deck did have some meta relevancy last season, like you said, or Secluded Springs, like the first half. But basically the second half of the deluxe pack, I don't even think I've seen a top cut a tournament. Maybe it has like top cutted once. I don't even think I've actually played it against it in rank, and I'm also like very close to you in the top 2000. And obviously I'm like below you, so I'm facing more random decks, and I still haven't even seen it. So in my personal opinion, I don't think the deck is good. Like okay, Magnezone is always really strong if you go first and get Magnezone right away, but that's not the case half the time with Magnezone, because you actually do have to commit to going into the stage 1 and then the stage 2. So I don't think the deck is that good. I personally would say low tier because I think Raichu is bad, and then like you said, Magnezone is a little bit too slow for this current format. But what are your opinions?
My opinion is C tier for cope, because I feel like Raichu giving you that draw engine makes you think that you'll have the Magnezone, a lot quicker. But the problem with that is, again, we're in a format where we're seeing double red card Mars commonly in decks. So your consistency, if you're seeing a bunch of, crazy hands, you're gonna get red carded silver, quite frequently. And the reason I put it in C cope, you're still coping over Magnezone being a little bit more consistent. So that's why my take would be C tier.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I didn't even think about that. With the double red card decks, like, you're not seeing that Magnezone. Like, the thing about Magnezone Sylveon in the past was Sylveon is a good partner for it because you want to be able to see Magneton and evolve in the same turn. With Raichu, you think there is synergy, but you draw at the end phase, so you draw the Magneton, but you can't evolve that turn. So it's like pseudo synergy where you think it should work, but I don't think it actually does at the end of the day. So yeah, I think C tier is perfect.
Exactly.
All right, guys, you already know, bro. We have Magcargo, easy S tier, best deck in the game. Now, honestly, the unfortunate part about Magcargo, in my personal opinion, I'm just gonna put it in Ultra Ball, aka F, that'll probably be D for you. I think that's the lowest because obviously I just don't think this deck is, you know, it's not played in anything but usually like Ultra Ball, and you might see it in like Ultra Ball 5, aka unranked. But the problem with Magcargo is that you damage your bench, so you can't play anything but Magcargo. Some people have played Magby for like a turbo, you know, going first, you can attack by your second turn, but the problem is sometimes Magby just eats 150 damage. So basically they designed this card to be just a worse Dugtrio, so it's more of like a meme deck than anything. I don't know if you have like anything to say about the deck.
Yeah, I think it belongs in S tier. Nah, but in all seriousness, the deck is just not great. It's good for memes, casual, but that's about it. I'm just gonna put it in D tier. There's not really much to say about it other than what Sek already brought up. So now we are going to Jolteon Flareon, right? So this deck right here, it's very, very interesting, right? It's a hybrid of the Flareon Magby, but you're not playing Magby, right? You're playing Pichu to get that 1 energy on Jolteon, so you could use Pin Missile. It's 40 plus, you know, every time you hit heads, right? So that's really strong on Oricorio. I personally do not like the deck because if you don't draw Pichu, Pichu becomes a dead card. It just has a lot of potential to like have a lot of, you know, late game dead draws, where in a tournament setting I would say yes, the deck is pretty good, it's consistent, but in a ladder best of 1 I don't think it's good, because the problem is you're playing against all these decks that are super consistent, and if you have to play catch up, because you can brick, right, but you're adding an additional lose condition to like not having or drawing Pichu late game while, you know, you have a Flareon EX about to die or something like that. My personal opinion is probably gonna be a wild take, because I'm looking at this as a ladder tier list. I'm not looking at this as a tournament tier list. But before I place it anywhere, I'll give the mic to Seth.
Yeah, so I agree with literally everything you said. As someone who's been playing the Flareon deck way more recently, like the pure version, the Jolteon has a lot of things going wrong for it, like you said. Like, one of the misconceptions that I personally had with Flareon is that I thought Flareon was a lot more high rolly than it actually is. However, I believe the Jolteon is the actual high roll version of the deck, because as you said, if you don't see that Pichu, Jolteon is basically useless, so that's going to be 1 or 2 bricks depending on how many copies you have in the deck, and then you're basically just playing a nerfed version of the Flareon deck because you don't have access to the non-EX Flareon in case you do run into that Oricorio. So it's kind of a weird situation, because like, yeah, there actually has been a decent amount of Jolteon Flareons doing good in tournaments, like making these top 8s of these like 300 plus person tournaments, but I still don't think the deck is better than the traditional Flareon, because like Jolteon can give you that better matchup into something like Suicune, because you can nuke them. At the same time, you can just land 3 tells and not do absolutely anything every turn. So I feel like your hot take is going to be mid tier is what I'm going to assume. And I think if there was a tier in between like mid tier and high tier is what it, like I'd probably put it, because it does have tournament results to back it up. Plus at the end of the day, Flareon EX is extremely good, so it does carry the deck. But I don't like the consistency of the deck compared to the regular Flareon one. So I think personally I'd put a mid tier, but I don't know about like where you would put it.
Yeah, I was going with mid tier. Again, we're not talking about tournament results. Best 2 out of 3, you have a case, because you definitely have, you know, more tries, you know, to win the game. But if you're playing best of 1, it's definitely, in my opinion, a B tier deck.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so Milktank Whitney, and I'm gonna put it at the very bottom, and we can move on to the next deck.
Pretty much. Next up, we have Dragonite Cleffa. Like Charizard, this Clef tech has been really, really good for anything that's involving rare candy, right? Rare candy Pokemon. Clef helps all the rare candy Pokemon, right? You can find all your missing pieces a lot more consistent. You do play the 2 baby Pokemons because you have to have the dual energy, and you have Mantike and Pichu, so you can search them up with Pokeball. It's not that terrible, but at the same time, there is that curve where you have like, what if I miss my evolution line? And I just think overall it's a worse version of Charizard. Now here's why: because you're not only depending on rare candy, you're depending on energy. dual energy, water and electric. There could be times where the dual energy system is just not working in your way, and or you don't see Mantike or Pichu, you know. So for that reason, I would just put it in mid tier because it does have a lot of strong win streaks when it pops off. I'm not going to lie, I've even experienced this. But then again, it really is a high roll deck. But let me get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely agree. Charizard is probably more consistent than Dragonite. Obviously, Dragonite, because it does do more damage, has that higher peaks because it can one-shot something like Guzz. But you need way more puzzles, like puzzle pieces, to actually make the deck work. For Charizard, you just need rare candy. Like, you need 3 things for Charizard to go right. But for Dragonite, you need like 5 or 6 sometimes. Where like, you need the Lyra, you need the Pichu or Mantike with the correct energy, you need the rare candy. The one benefit that Dragonite does have is that non-EX Dragonite is actually good. So even with like an Oricorio, it's not an instant lost matchup, and even in like matchups that are not Oricorio, like, you know, non-EX Dragonite can pop off sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's just basically the same thing as Charizard, just with more puzzle pieces, with like a higher height. So I think putting next to Charizard makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you can't disrespect the win streaks because they're out there, right? I'm not saying the same. We can't see that for the Raichu and Magnezone, you know. That's why it's in C tier on my end. So
exactly. So next up, we have like a weird one. So obviously people know Suicune most famously partnered with Greninja. This is actually going to be partnered with Gyarados. And this deck actually ended up winning a tournament. I think it was like a 200+ person tournament, if I do recall exactly. And I faced this on the ladder a decent amount, and I don't think I've ever lost to it. So it's like another weird one where like it's basically just, you know, obviously Suicune is best played with Greninja, so it's kind of like a weird Suicune deck. And don't get me wrong, like Gyarados like can pop off, especially if like Fisher. It can hit that I think like 140 threshold with the 3 on the bench. So like going second, or like even like a Misty Flip turn 1 can just nuke your opponent. But at the end of the day, it's not the most consistent because you are relying on something like Fisher or like the Nets, and you like those take up like a lot of space in the deck. So it's kind of like, it kind of feels like similar to Charizard. I don't know how you feel about the deck, but it's definitely like a more high roll Suicune version. So I actually probably think I know where I would place it, but like, let's hear your opinions first.
yeah, pretty much I would say it's around that Charizard type of play style where, yeah, it's one evolution to get the Gyarados, but at the same time it's kind of counterproductive, but it works because Suicune thrives on having a lot of Pokemon on the board, while Gyarados thrives on, you know, dumping them to the graveyard. So, you know, it works, it puts high numbers, it can steal games, and I just say, you know, why play the worst version of the best deck, you know what I'm saying? So I would put it like in the B tier because it could get you wins, right? It's like one of those, it's a very situational deck, but you still have to respect it because if you don't, it could just come out of nowhere and win.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think mid tier, because I don't think it's as bad as something like Raichu Magnezone. So I think like, if we're like theoretically putting these in order, so far it would probably be definitely like under Decidueye. So yeah, I think B tier makes a lot of sense to be able to put it in.
Right, the damage output is realistic in this deck, and you just have to respect that because they also play Greninja to snipe.
Yeah, it's just something that could easily nuke you if you're not like looking out for it.
And then we have Silvally Rampardos. Now the deck is really well when you play against a bunch of electric decks. Again, I feel like it's like one of those meta calls when you're playing on the ladder. Is like you're seeing a lot of electric decks. You know, Silvally just plays well into, you know, any type of electric toolbox really good because we don't worry about Oricorio, right? Now, just summoning Rampardos is a win condition because you're doing 130 plus 20 to every electric type. So the deck is really strong, but where it lacks is getting Rampardos out. It's definitely a rare candy deck, and rare candy decks just really, the problem with rare candy decks is just the consistency issues, right? You're forced to play Iono in decks like this, and Iono could either help your opponent out as well, so, and you're mainly playing cards to, you know, get Silvally active and everything like that. So it really depends. if you keep your hand large for that Iono switch, you're putting yourself at risk for a red card or Mars. So that's another thing that you have to be aware about. But I know where I'm gonna put it. Let me hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be mid tier again, just like Gyarados, is what I'm assuming you're going to put it. I kind of agree, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, Rampardos is one of the most broken cards in the game, and the deck, if it actually draws Rampardos, has like a really like high ceiling to the damage output. However, sometimes you just only have 2 Silvallies, and obviously 2 Silvallies is not going to win you game. I mean, it can win you games against certain decks, but against something like Suicune or even Giratina, these 2 Silvallies are not going to really win games. Like, there's been so many times where I faced against a Silvally player and they just concede because they don't have that Skull Fossil. So it's like, it can be extremely broken, or sometimes you just don't find it and the deck falls apart. So I think it's like kind of like the definition of mid.
I will say you do have, you know, repel in the meta, right? So you could be forced into the, you know, fossil and either lose it in one hit, or you'll be forced to discard it, you know? So
yeah, that is true. Like, I've done that so many times. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've been punished for doing that because I repel them. I'm like, okay, well, just discard it, and then a Rampardos pops out and I lose. But like, most of the time with repel being meta, like, Professor Research and then in the repel dude, get that Skull Fossil out of there because they're kind of forced to if they want to go back on the offensive, is extremely annoying. So yeah, it's just like there's a lot going wrong for it in this meta. However, it could just draw good. So next up, we have Greninja Oricorio. So, you know, if you guys have been playing, you know, before Suicune, this was a deck that has definitely been around. Currently, it's actually not in the greatest position because, you know, Greninja is very good in the Oricorio. What is the best Greninja deck is obviously going to be Suicune. So this deck, it can be extremely bad in the Suicune if you don't snipe those Froakies and like Cyrus them in right away, because, you know, obviously this deck can attack with Oricorio, but realistically, that's not going to be happening. So this is like a weird one because like Simon Nobi is what this like traditionally is called. It's Greninja, Oricorio, and Giratina. It's actually a really strong deck in the GGB tournaments for those of you who are familiar, because it's very good going into stuff like Darktina and then Guzz. It could also be good against like these electric decks as well now, like Tapus and Pikachus, because you have the Iridas to make sure their Oricorio can't be able to 2-tap you. And with Greninja Oricorio, you could actually 1-tap their Oricorios. So it's like another situation with like Buzz, where like Buzz is good against a lot of decks that are not Suicune, and Simon Nobi slash, you know, just regular Greninja Oricorio is kind of the same way. But the matchup against Suicune is so bad, where like, I think I already know where I'm going to place it, but let me just hear your thoughts and opinions first.
So yeah, the deck is one of those consistency decks where, like, you know, if it ain't broke, you know, why fix it? And again, like he mentioned, it plays really well into the meta. So I'll just put it again somewhere around kind of the mid tier. I'm just gonna be honest with you, because it's lacking that pull where Suicune gives you the free draw, and you know, you don't have the Sylveon for this deck.
Yeah, it definitely has some consistency issues. So I also agree. I think it also mid. I think in a different format is one of those decks can always come back maybe, but yeah, like has so many consistency issues, whether that be Greninja finding the rare candy for it, plus the dual energy sometimes can screw you over. So I think mid tier is fine, because it's kind of like similar to like stuff like Decidueye, where like it's a good anti-meta deck, and against other decks it kind of just falls apart.
Right. Now we have Daycare. So this deck right here is the one that you run Leaf and Komala. Now I'm gonna be honest, this deck is still really relevant. There are different versions of Daycare. So that being said, Komala's still pretty good. You know, 1 hit for 2 energy for 70, easy to get in this deck. And if you end up starting, you know, Arceus or Darkrai in the front row, you could always leaf away. So there are multiple conditions to fix your bad hands or bad starts. Overall, I've been playing both versions of Daycare, and I think it's been treating me equally as good as the other one. I'm not gonna lie. Overall, I think it's a nice high ladder type of a deck where you're just in and out of games, and that's basically what you're trying to aim to get high tier, get, more points and win streaks. What do you think?
Yeah, so I actually agree. I kind of always doubted this deck. Like, I always thought it was extremely high roll. Obviously, it is pretty consistent. I'm talking about more of the Snorlax one personally. I actually don't think the Kamala one is that good, but I also just had like a bad experience playing it. But I think the Snorlax one with the 14 Pokemon and the 2 Tyrogues, I think that deck definitely has some stuff to it. It is definitely like a really like high roll deck, but it probably is high tier because one of the most important things in ranked, we talked about this for like Flareon and Tapu is kind of weird because Oricorio games sometimes take long, but stuff like Flareon, if you high roll, dude, you either get an insta win, or because you are playing like baby Pokemon plus these big attackers, whether that be Arceus, Darkrai, or Snorlax, you can just win games fast, or sometimes you lose games fast. We're in like a ranked season with the win streaks where you just want to be able to play a bunch of games, go on a huge win streak, even if you lose games, as long as you're on a win streak. I definitely think the Daycare deck has that sauce to it, where like, and also kind of this like, it destroys Suicune if you draw, like if you go second with Suicune, you could destroy it depending on their board state. And then it's also really good in the stuff like Giratina, so it has really pretty good matchups to all the top decks as long as you draw good. So I would probably say the bottom of high tier a lot, because like I do think it is better than stuff like Jolteon in ranked and the Decidueye. In tournaments, it's kind of weird because not a lot of representation, but obviously this is a ranked tier list at the end of the day. So I'd probably put high tier.
Yeah, I would agree. A tier would be the best placement for this deck right now. One of my friends ended up getting into top 100 with this deck, and when he told me to switch to try it out, it has boosted me up over 100 points this season, so it's really good.
Yep. Well, for the next deck, we have another electric deck, dude. It's going to be actually Genetic Apex Pikachu. So Genetic Apex Pikachu basically saw no play in like the original Secluded Strings like first half. However, for like the first 2 days of the Deluxe pack, probably because the immersive, I did see a bunch of people playing this. I played it actually myself to get into Master Ball, and I don't know if we want to beat around a dead horse, dude, but it's pretty bad. it's electric decks are not the best, dude.
Yeah, it's not that
Genetic
great.
Apex. Yes, I'm just gonna put a low tier, because like at the end of the day, it can pop off because sometimes you just high roll and be able to nuke something for 90, but at the end of the day, it's not as good as Tapu Koko.
Yeah, because you're kind of reliant on having a bench, and having a bench is pretty bad right now, especially if you're playing electric, because you could just get picked off with Greninja, and Suicune just eats your Pokemon at that point, once you overcommitted to the field, and your opponent has their easy picks, like, oh, I'll take your EX Pikachu that does 150 damage, so that's not going to be a threat anymore. And yeah, no, for that reason, I do agree, it's definitely a low tier deck. Well, I'll put it in C tier because it does have the potential to win, but it's not that strong. It was a beginning of the format type of thing. People were just adjusting from the last format, and you really didn't see this until the end of the month last month.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously double Oricorio kind of carries the deck,
and it has evolved. This deck has evolved into the Oricorio Pikachu Tapu Koko.
Exactly what I was about to say. Like, yep. Tapu Koko is just 20 times better than the Pikachu, because not only can you just put it on the board by itself to do the 90, so Suicune can do a lot of damage, but it also has 10 more HP, which actually can be really relevant.
Definitely. And then I want to segue into Silvally Zeraora. So this deck right here is really strong. I'm not going to lie. Overall, I think it's just a fair deck. The reason I want to say it's a fair deck is because, you give your opponents a chance to build up. Yeah, if you start off with double Zeraora, best case scenario with type null in the back, but you're not gonna realistically start all your games like this. I personally came top 16 in a tournament with this deck, and it was a best of 3. It's good in a best of 3. 1000% I would say this deck, and I will fight for that, because Rocky Helmet and then switching into type Silvally hitting for 100 and then sometimes 120 is pretty strong, and it could push for game. In a ladder, it's like one of those situations where like it could get you the win if you get the right hands and the right matchup, but like at the same time, I would put it in a B tier. So it would be in a B tier, but higher than Rampardos Silvally. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I 100% agree, dude. I was gonna put mid tier. I thought you were actually gonna put this in A tier because you're kind of glazing it, at least in tournaments.
I gotta be realistic.
No, yeah, exactly. I always thought this deck was mid. I thought it was overrated actually last season because I tested this a bunch against Suicune, and it actually is not a hard Suicune counter. Like, yeah, you can sometimes just get those god hands and absolutely demolish Suicune, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the best counter. It also like didn't have any Oricorios, so it wasn't the best against Darktina either. Darktina actually ended up beating it, and then Guz, you know, if they landed coin flip rally, it was over. So I thought it was always mid tier, and I still think it's like the second best electric deck if you want to count it as electric, but I think something like Tapu Oricorio was kind of just took its place and basically I think did what it like kind of wanted to do last format.
Like I mentioned, it's just too fair. It's too fair of a deck.
Okay, so let's just move on to Umbreon. I have some harsh words, so
by all means, spill them all out.
I saw this dude good in the tournament, dude. It actually had a couple like top cut tournament placings, and I tried the deck on ladder, and it was like supposed to be Suicune because, you know, like a non-EX Umbreon, you know, basics can't attack. Oh, like, you know, Suicune can never attack. And then you attack them for 40 while they're just Greninja pinging you for 40 damage. And then you're like, I'm actually not doing anything. Not only do both the Umbreons have a 2 retreat cost, but there's not really a good partner. You're kind of forced to play Darkrai because it's the only good dark type. Like Umbreon, yeah, it can be kind of good going second because you can do 80 damage if they try to swap out, but it just has no good partners. It has no good way to actually access the bench because like it's like double dark, so you can't even like use something like Greninja. So there's just so many flaws. I think the main one was the 2 retreat cost. The 40 damage on the non-EX one doesn't really add up. I don't even think it's good. I would probably put it in like D to B. I would put it in D. I don't think it's, I would rather play Raichu Magnezone. Like it doesn't, I just don't feel like it beats anything, dude. Like maybe it beats like Psychic Espeon if you go second, but like is that really a feat in this meta?
Now I get it if Umbreon, Sylveon, a Vion type of fan, but overall we're talking about Pocket, we're talking about tier list. Why are you playing this right now? It's not meta relevant. All right, now we're gonna segue into another version of Daycare. So this Daycare is the one that you play Smoochum and Tyrogue. This deck right here, overall really strong, right? The deck has double Tyrogue that deals with Oricorio and your Darkrai pinging it. So you play Geo to like push for game. You have Smoochum. Smoochum is like baby Espeon that does 20 damage for each energy your opponent has for free. So this could steal games on Guzzlord, could steal games on Darkrai and Giratina, and lastly steal Oricorio kills. And if your opponent is just being, you know, one of those players that just randomly stacks energy on one Pokemon and ends up having 6 energy on a bulky Pokemon for no reason, there has been scenarios where, you know, I've been in that and I just drop a Smoochum and I push for game because they never thought I would have anything, you know, built up that quick. So overall, the deck is fast like the other Daycare deck. I will say it's a lot better than the Kamala version because you don't play Pokeball. Every draw is a Pokeball, basically. So give me your thoughts of your, you know, you started playing the deck like yesterday. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, so I actually low-key thought this image was the electric Arceus deck. If we're talking about the Snorlax variant, I think I basically already talked about it for the Darkrai Arceus image. I think the Snorlax like Daycare version with the 14 Pokemon is way better than the Kamala version because I just don't, I never want to start Kamala, bro. Like obviously you never want to start like something like Arceus or Darkrai in the active spot, but I just don't think Kamala's that good. Like I'd rather play honestly Tyrogue plus Smoochum to deal with an Oricorio because like they also can come up in different matchups. For like Kamala, I don't know, bro. Maybe it's just like I had a bad experience with the deck. I think the Snorlax variant, I think yeah, you could just either high roll, have a fast game. Like sometimes yeah, you brick and you can't like go into it, but I think overall like it just speed runs through the meta. You can get easy win streaks, and at the end of the day, I think that's just what you're trying to accomplish. So I think it's actually like pretty good high tier.
Definitely A tier.
Well, speaking about the Arceus Pichu Zeraora deck that I thought we were going to be talking about, We just talk about that next. So unlike obviously, you know, the Daycare version, it's basically just an electric toolbox with Arceus being that pseudo electric type, because Arceus kind of is the best electric type if you do think about it. So this deck is like traditionally like double Oricorio, double Zera, and actually maybe something like one Oricorio. I forget how the lists have basically evolved, especially in this meta, but like two Pichus, like two Arceuses, and it's kind of like similar to Daycare idea. Like sometimes you like go second Pichu Arceus, you could turbo that stuff. You have like the Oricorio version, so if you are facing something like Darktina, you do have that stalling power. I think this deck has definitely been outdated. I thought it was a lot stronger back in Wisdom. I think, yes, you know, basically like baby Pokemon being a liability with Greninja, plus they're just like better Arceus versions, aka Daycare, that we just talked about. I kind of feel like it's just like a little bit outdated, but what are your thoughts and opinions?
So fun fact, this deck right here is pretty strong, and fun fact, it got me into top 100 in the early season when we were around like 1700 points, 1700. And the deck overall, it's just fast, and it feels so unfair when you have that, you know, turn 2 Arceus that could attack. It's like the most mind-boggling thing. And you're not always gonna get that, right? You're not always gonna get that star. You're not gonna get the Zeraora star. There's sometimes you'll probably start off with Arceus. Yeah, you play Leaf in order to fix that, but again, that's like another one of that you have to draw. So overall, just based on how the meta has evolved, I would consider it's a mid-tier for now.
Yeah, I agree. I actually kind of forgot about the E-Switch plays with Zera, but like you said, you do have to have a lot of pieces to be able to get that god like going second combo. So I kind of agree. Like I think it was definitely stronger at the, like I think it's also like one of those decks that are like very good early on when like a lot of people were trying out stuff because you could easily punish people. But as it kind of has developed, yeah, it's kind of just gotten weaker over time, as it's not like overly strong or anything if you kind of don't have like the perfect hand. So yeah, I kind of agree mid-tier also.
Perfect. Now we're gonna segue into a variant that I've been seeing around lately popping up. It's kind of an older type of deck. We have Silvally Oricorio, and you know, sometimes they play the Pichu, and this variant of Silvally Oricorio is pretty good, but at the same time, you know, you're playing so much Pokemon dedication. Whether it be you're not playing the Pichu, you're probably playing double Zeraora with double Oricorio and double, you know, type null, and Silvally's, you're really not gonna see a lot of supporter cards, and just because of that, I don't think it's very consistent. Yeah, you can wall out your opponent if they're running a hard EX deck, but at the same time, it's just you're playing Oricorio is the only thing that might be carrying this set. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I definitely have seen more people slotting in like one Ori in the Zera deck, so I guess that's kind of like what this is. I think like previous seasons this would probably be like counted as like the Pichu variant, but I think nowadays it's mainly just like the same deck as Silvally Zera with like one Oricorio, and obviously Silvally already has like energy management problems. I just imagine going for a starting Oricorio using a Pokeball, because you have that Oricorio, you get like a type null, so you kind of like clogged up the deck, and you don't have a Zera and you just have no energy management, dude, and that Oricorio is just stuck in the active, whether that be like a benefit against maybe like a certain deck. But I think it's probably just overall worse than Silvally Zera.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I would honestly, my take would be putting it in C tier. Like, it's great, but it's not that great. It's not, it doesn't have that oomph that Decidueye or Charizard will have, right? It's one of those things, let me stall you and hope I can build my board before you do, you know?
Exactly, and I think if you want to play Sylv Ori, I think you should just be playing Tapu Ori instead at the end of the day.
Or just go full send on, you know, Silvally Zeraora.
Exactly.
So, next up, we have the Tapu Koko, and basically you play double Ori. The deck is really good, right? But the thing is, I feel just for the simple fact that you could play other cards like Tapu Koko, Silvally, and Zeraora, like the one in A tier, I feel like that's a lot more consistent and stronger because you have other win conditions. This deck right here is just like literally built for pure Suicune hate, right? It has a high win rate against it, but if you're playing against like a Silvally Zeraora, when your Tapu Koko gets hit for, you know, 100 damage, you're kind of like panicking because you're about to give away, 2 free points. And any deck that, has, you have to kill or destroy 3 Pokemon, the deck is just like not really that good. I feel like you have to just play a deck that has EX Pokemon. Sure, you're putting fast damage, but at what cost? You only have 130 HP, and I don't think the turbo is that great. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, so I think this can be counted for, like you said, the double Ori plus the 2 Tapus only, like those 4 Pokemon. I think it also could just be counted as 18 trainer Tapu. I think basically they're the same deck, if we're going to be honest. And it's basically literally what you said. Why play this version when the better version with the Zeraoras and the Pikachu already exist? This saw some play, I think, at the end of Secluded Springs for like a week. People realized it was not good, and they kind of just stopped playing it. It kind of evolved into the other version. And if we're talking about 18 trainer Tapu, like, yeah, sometimes you go second, bro, choose a win. Overall, it's not that good. I'd probably just put it at the same stuff as Raikou, along with like all the other electric decks. But I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would say it's a solid like C tier deck. Like, it'll get you wins on Suicune, but people are starting to change up how they play on the ladder, and you're not always guaranteed that Suicune matchup.
Yep. So for the next deck is actually another electric deck. I think this might be the last one actually on the tier list, and it is going to be Raichu Luxray. So it is a deck that did see at least some competitive play in a tournament at, I think, like the beginning of last season, back when people were trying to experiment of Raichu countering Suicune. I think I may have saw it on ladder one time. Overall, like I've already said before, I don't think Raikou is good at all. I think the 2 energy, obviously retreat, and just like the less HP than Suicune, and it just being an electric type is just bad. I don't think the damage is enough. Like Luxray, yeah, sometimes you have those games where like you do have Volkner, so you can be able to like snipe something on the back. I mean, at the same time, like, it's just very inconsistent, and by the time you probably lose the game, because like this Raikou probably isn't getting a kill most likely before Luxray even attacks. So Luxray has to kind of get 2 KOs, and like Raikou's probably already dead at that point. So like Raikou's dead, Luxray goes and takes like the first KO and then just dies. Like, I don't think the deck is that good, in my personal opinion. Like, I'm kind of like looking at the top tier matchups or like anything above it, and like, I don't know, like, what does it even beat?
Just looking at it, it's like one of those decks is like, cool, Luxray, it's just like one of those like Umbreon factors, right? You like the Pokemon, mix it in with something that's kind of in the meta, and hope it works because of the draw engine. But again, just like the Magnezone suffers, there are a lot of red cards, there are a lot of Mars out there, silver to take away your Volkner. I almost said the Pokemon, the bird trainer from Johto. But it's not that great overall. Like, if there are other versions of this Raikou that you could be playing that's better, why are you playing this? I would put it in the D tier for my...
I would put it, yeah, I'm going to put in the exact same one. One thing I also forgot to note, like, you have to kind of put Shinx down, to be able to evolve it. And we did mention it earlier with a different deck. I forget which one, but it is Repel being very common. Like, Raikou's not a threat, dude. You can just Repel, kill the Shinx, and then the Raikou is like an easy way to just get like finish the game off once you do knock out the Raikou. So like,
yeah,
there's so many things just going wrong. Don't get me wrong, bro. Like you said, it's a cool deck. At the end of the day, it's more casual focused than anything.
Which segues us into the psyop of the season, the biggest psyop of Pokemon Pocket. Let me just give this to Suck, because this is his favorite deck.
All right, so if you want to skip next 20 minutes, put it on 2x speed. No, but so I love Espeon. If you guys don't know, I'm gonna gaslight myself a little bit, or not gaslight you, but I'm gonna glaze myself a little bit. I was one of the best Espeon players last season in tournaments. I got second at the RC Day, the final one, unfortunately. And Espeon was a number 2 deck in Wisdom. Going into going into Secluded Springs, I thought Espeon was still alright. I ended up making 2 top cuts with it, and I was doing okay on the rank ladder. I soon realized that Espeon has no winning matchups in like the top 5. It loses the Daycare, it loses the Flareon. Flareon does Flareon things going second. Tapu Koko, I mean, it beats that, but it like beats every electric deck. That's not really a feat, because like Tapu Koko is cool, but it's not like overly strong or anything. It's just like a nice consistent deck that like kind of like punishes, you know, these EX decks with Oricorio, and loses the Suicune. Some people say it beats Suicune. I don't care, dude. I have some homies, Ericko's also seen it in the Discord, that have been gaslighting up Espeon. I tried it yesterday. This deck sucks. This deck doesn't do anything. Like I said, it has losing matchups, bro. It just doesn't do anything. Like, it beats electric decks. It beats these low tier electric decks, but that's not a feat. In my personal opinion, dude, Espeon is not good in this meta. I love the deck. I wish it was good. I think it is, for me personally, I think it's a mid-tier deck, because at the end of the day, Espeon is very consistent with the Sylveons. The problem is you want to be placing EVs down. You can't do that against Suicune. One of the best like things about the deck was the draw power. You basically have that taken away in that certain matchup, and because most people are now removing the 1-1-2 line, it has an even worse matchup in the Darktina if they don't brick or just, you know, play bad. So the number 2 best decks are bad matchups. I just honestly, dude, it's just bad. It's obviously it's not bad because it's a mid-tier deck, but because it like theoretically beats most of these mid-tier decks as well. It's just when we get into the high-tier decks, Espeon just cannot compete anymore. So I know some people, even like people like Kinkajou, are like back playing the deck and like Suicune, but I don't think overall it's good. I think it can be good in certain ladders if you are facing a bunch of electrics, but like I said, dude, against like anything else, this deck sucks. So I'm gonna put it mid tier.
I would want to put it somewhere in between mid tier and cope, because there are players coping for this, but it is definitely B tier.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, looking at the stuff in B tier, like Espeon actually beats everything in this tier almost, if not just beats it. It's just everything above, I just don't think it does good into. So like I cannot put it in a high tier.
Right, exactly. Then we have Silvally Giratina. This deck right here was pretty good when it first came out, but has a lot of faults, right? Where you could overcommit to the Giratina, then you get sniped, and then it gets pulled in, and then boom, you lose 2 points. You have to play a Babymon, so you could give energy to anything. You could play a Babymon. I've been seeing that variant, and just overall the deck, again, I think it's just a worse version of Silvally Zeraora. Let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, so I 100% agree. I definitely think out of all the Silvally decks, Zeraora is the best version, and we already talked about how that's not even the best, it's still mid. I actually played this deck, you know, a different variant, obviously, back in ED Crisis, and it was always alright. It was nothing spectacular, it's just doing Silvally things, with sometimes you have that fast Giratina charge. Like I know there are some people that are doing good with it, and that was mainly, I would say, last season. And I don't know, like the deck just, especially in tournaments, obviously this is, like I said, ranked, but even like just looking at tournament stuff, like the deck is barely represented. I don't know, dude. It just has a lot of things going wrong, because like if you go first with Silvally, if like some versions, like you said, play the baby, some don't play the baby. If you go first and don't play the baby and you don't have Giratina, it kind of falls apart, because you know Silvally does not like going first. And then sometimes you go second, and it's weird because like by your turn 2, do you want to attack for 100 or do you want to charge up Giratina because you probably only have 1 energy on Giratina? Or like sometimes you want to do the coin flip turn 1, like to do maybe the 40 damage and then one shot something like a Suicune if they have no Irida. So it's always like a confliction, bro, between Giratina and Silvally in the deck. I think it's all right. I don't think it's anything special. At the end of the day, Silvally is better than stuff like Raichu, so I probably would put it at like the end of mid tier, kind of similar to Rampardos. But I don't like, it's just all right. It doesn't do anything special. It's just Silvally.
Right. Exactly.
And looking at the next deck, dude, I don't even want to look at it, dude. It's Egg.
It's your favorite.
If you guys have played ladder, you guys have probably been cheesed by this deck or had like a celebration because they bricked for 3 turns.
It's the robbery.
I'm gonna put it next to Charizard, man. Yeah, literally, it's just robbery, dude. It's the same thing as Charizard. If they get it, they get it. If not, the deck sucks. So I don't know where you're gonna put it, dude. But like I said, I have a solitaire tier for these BS decks. I'm gonna put it straight in that.
Yeah, it's a very 50-50 deck. I'm putting it in B. There's really no explanation here. You flip coins, you win. You hit the lottery, you win. You don't, you lose. Damn. Next one we have Dugtrio Lucario. Now, this deck plays well into electric, but everything else is kind of, I don't know. I don't think it's that great. I've seen people have win streaks with it, and I really don't know how. Because, like, everything has low HP. Everything has low HP, right? Sure, Doug could push, but at the same time, I just don't think it's a real deck. And I can't be convinced. What do you think, Suck? You probably have more input. I played this deck once. That's about it.
Yeah, so I tried this deck one time for a stream because, you know, funny Dugtrio deck, you know, good content for a YouTube video. I played it on stream. I think I played around like 8 matches. And I think I won maybe one of those. And that was before the electric decks were popping off. This deck absolutely sucks unless you're facing electric, in my personal opinion. Sure, dude, maybe sometimes you fucking pop off with hopefully you don't mind me swearing on the channel, by the way.
Go ahead.
But hopefully sometimes you pop off, bro, and you go first, bro. Dugtrio pops off or something. I don't even know, dude. The deck's a scam deck. Like, it's not good. I'd put it next to Umbreon. Like, I don't know, dude. I don't like the deck personally. But yeah, if you're facing electric, it's probably the best deck in the game.
It's like, you see all these other decks, why are you playing this? Why?
Exactly, bro. Like, I'd rather play Magcargo or Milktank.
Right.
Okay, dude. So next up is one of my favorite cards in the game, dude. We got Guzzlord.
I despise this deck.
Well, that's because you play Daycare, bro.
Yeah.
But Guzzlord, dude, not only is he the tankiest beast in the game besides Snorlax, he has the most broken attack in the game, which is Grindcore, which obviously the same thing as TRG. You could delete energy. Lusamine obviously is what makes the deck actually broken. Combine that with Grindcore. So basically the new version is like 17 trainer because you can't really play so much stuff on the bench like the Knock'n'Do version because of Suicune existing. The deck lives and dies by Grindcores. The deck is really good, or like I would say even in the Darktina, maybe Darktina is slightly favored depending on the Grindcores. It's traditionally really good in the Suicune, if no Oricorio. I'm gonna put it in a high tier because I still think it is extremely good. With the addition of Tapu Ori, I will say the deck has gone weaker because I used to think this was the definitive third deck until Tapu Ori existed, because I climbed 500 in 2 days with this deck, and then Tapu existed, and then my life has been miserable because it's good, bro. Grindcore is broken. Sometimes you can't find the other Pokeball, so you do lose, but it just kind of has everything going for it besides that Ori matchup, because it's like good in the Flareon, even Darktina, good in the Suicune, good in the Daycare. You could delete energy on like every other thing, have a winning matchup, and then obviously you lose the Grass, but Grass is not the most represented, so it doesn't really have too many bad matchups besides, just bricking and not landing Grindcores.
Yeah, I would say it's a fair A tier. Like, A tier, high A tier deck. I wouldn't put it in S tier, per se, like even without the Tapu Koko. But that's just me, because like, overall, the deck can be super, super bricky, but like, Darktina is very hard to get, like, brick, right? The only real brick is like, you don't see Giratina like the whole game. But I don't know, I just feel like it's definitely an A tier. It has a very good matchup into everything in A tier minus the Tapu Ori. But yeah, just like you mentioned, it's very good.
Yeah, and like I think I mean personally I would have put a top tier if the double Ori decks didn't exist. But that's just because I'm a huge Guzzlord fan and I did think it was that good. But it's definitely, I think it's probably like either the fourth, it's in the definitely top 5 of this meta.
Yes.
Because I still do respect it.
I would agree with that.
I know I did introduce Guzz, dude, but you already know I got to introduce this next one real quick.
Yeah.
So we got Suicune Trio. So
take the mic.
This deck actually, yeah, dude. So this deck actually had one good tournament result, bruh. It ended up making top 64 at a Frog EX at the very beginning of Wisdom of the Sky, or not Wisdom of the Sky, bro. Secluded Springs. I keep getting them mixed up, bro. But yeah, at the beginning of that season, got a top 64, bro. I wonder who that was. And this deck was actually, I thought it was actually pretty decent because it actually has synergy that you might not think about. Trio doesn't want your opponent to put more stuff on the bench because you obviously want to nuke that 150 damage to like 1 or 2 Pokemon. And then Suicune takes advantage if they do try to play around Trio. And obviously with the introduction of Mantike, you had both a way to ramp Suicune going first, or if you go second, you could like turbocharge a Trio, where before you did have Manaphy or just Misty Flips. This deck's actually like not that bad if you do actually a high roll of the Mantike. Not trying Mantike going first is kind of when it's rough. Obviously it is a meme deck, but I'm gonna put a Rogue, bro. Or like for me that's D tier with like Umbreon, because I do think it's better than stuff like Magcargo at the end of the day.
Yeah, pretty much. I have nothing to say about this deck because I never played it. Probably never will.
I think I'm like one of three who have actually played this deck,
Yeah.
at least in like Master Ball / tournaments.
Right. So that being said, we're gonna go into Crobat, Nihilego, Darkrai. The deck is good, right? But I just feel like, sure, you're doing 70 damage and it has high HP, but at the same and poison. But at the same time, you could brick easily with this deck. Don't really have a good draw engine, and rare candy without a draw engine. No clef, nothing to help your consistency. Just overall hurts the deck. It's pretty strong. It was pretty good in the, if in a psychic dominated meta, but here right now where Suicune's running around, I don't think, and a bunch of electric decks where you have Oris, sure you could poison the Oris, but this just charges up. You could charge up a Pikachu to hit 150 while you're smacking it with 50 with Ori, So overall, it's not that impressive, this format. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I agree. Like, I think it definitely benefited last format when, Espeon was the second best deck because, Crobat actually kind of destroyed Espeon, and, as long as they drew into it,
Yeah.
Which is the problem. Sometimes you just don't draw. People basically disregarded the Sylveon version because even with that, like, Sylveon was just like a liability. So people just like hard draw Crobat now. And I think it's in a weird spot because I think if you do get a fast Crobat, it still can be pretty decent, especially against Suicune, because Suicune won't be able to do that much damage combined with Lilies. At the end of the day, you gotta draw it. It's very inconsistent, and it's not doing these Charizard or Dragonite numbers with high rolling. So I'd probably put it like obviously we're not like super ordering the tier list. I'd probably still put it at the end of mid tier because I still think it's probably better than something like Raichu at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where you would put it.
Yeah, I would agree. It still has like the potential, but I wouldn't say like, again, like you mentioned, it's like the end of like mid tier.
All right, dude. Next up, we have Skarmory. I don't even know what to
Can we
say,
just put
dude.
that
Like,
enough?
can we just?
There's not.
I would probably put it in D, but like,
Yeah, D, I mean,
it's
yeah.
seen some play. Yes.
That is
like,
my-
let's just put it in D.
Yeah.
It's just worse Espeon. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, I've definitely seen it do top cuts, and it's definitely punished Suicune because Suicune actually can do barely any damage. But at the same time, you just air it up, you charge a Giratina Brett, and then you just win the game.
Pretty
Like,
much.
it's not that good.
Next up, we have Solgaleo and the legendary dogs. So basically, in this variant, you have the legendary dogs, which is either Raichu, Suicune, or Entei, Suicune, whatever you want. You mainly want to go with the ones that have the higher HP. That's what I would recommend doing. But that being said, it fixes the draw engine, inconsistencies with Solgaleo. But the problem is, it's another rare candy deck, and I feel like the Shiinotic version is a lot stronger than the legendary dogs. Because here, sure, you have the potential to draw a card every turn, but you're like sacrificing 2 points if you don't hit curve, Solgaleo, and you could just lose to something random. It's overall alright. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so Solgaleo is weird because, if you've been playing the game, it fell off really hard in Wisdom. Before that, it's kind of always seen better relevancy. And there's a lot of reasons. One, Flareon's existence. You could just easily nuke it. 2, double Oricorio decks. Probably like stuff like Arceus Daycare doesn't help either. And obviously Suicune, he just charges up like Giratina and like pings the bench. Yeah, it's just weird because like there's just so many things that punishes it now. Where like obviously at the end of the day, like I don't even know how to talk about this deck, bro. Like a fast Solgaleo is still a fast Solgaleo, but there's just so many ways for a deck to be able to deal with that. And like you said, with them playing Raikou now, or like whatever legendary beast they do want to play, it's like way easier to like deal with that because they also draw at the end of the turn. So unlike something like Shiinotic or Sylveon, like they have to find the piece. They might find the piece like 1 turn too late. So I actually don't even know. I feel like I'm just yapping nonsense, dude. I'd probably just put a D, dude, or like C.
Yeah, I feel like C tier people are coping. The only reason a fast Solgaleo is a fast Solgaleo, right?
Yeah, so like I would respect Solgaleo more than Skarmory if they, you know, draw like a turn 2
Yeah.
Solgaleo. It's just half the time they don't draw a turn 2 Solgaleo anymore.
Exactly.
Or at least when I face them. So next up we have another Dragonite deck, dude. This was the Sylveon one. And you could definitely mention, like, talk about the same stuff we talked about for Sylveon Charizard, because, you know, we have the Cleffa variant already in like B tier / solitaire tier, whatever tier list you guys are looking at, you know, obviously the POV. And I will say that Sylveon kind of has more synergy probably in the Dragonite one, because Find a Friend is kind of more useful, because sometimes maybe you want to find like the right baby Pokemon, or you do want to find like the right version of Dragonite. Obviously Sylveon can still be a liability, but the thing about Dragonite, like if you get Dragonite on the board, usually you do win. But like I said, it is a liability. Sometimes you can knock out a baby Pokemon and then win with a Cyrus and the Sylveon. So it is definitely worse than the Cleffa one. So I'll probably still put it in C tier.
Yeah.
Because I do think Sylveon is probably better in Dragonite than Charizard, because Dragonite's more scarier. But it's still definitely a liability.
Overall, I have no arguments over that, because the deck is just like, yeah, it is what it is. There's not really anything else to elaborate with that.
Yeah, it's just the same thing, and like it's actually seen play in tournaments and rank compared to like Sylveon Zard, which has seen no play. So that's just one thing going for it. But yeah, it's just low tier.
Next up, we have Porygon Z. Now, this deck is really interesting. It had a good day one in Pokemon's tournament, and it had very good matchups against the current meta. So that being said, if you guys don't know what Porygon Z does, it basically adds, it's a Stoutland. It adds 1 energy cost to your opponent's Pokemon. And not only that, you get like a free evolution if you draw Porygon 2, because you place Porygon 2 on Porygon and attach an energy from your bench to, energy zone to your Porygon 2, and then it just evolves from your deck. Now, the other ability that you have access to is data scan. So before you play Pokeball, you could data scan to see if you get that Porygon 2, or, you know, draw to use data scan, look at the top deck. If it's not something you want, you could probably activate the Pokeball that you just probably drew from that. You know, there's many ways you can mess around with that as well. And I'm gonna let you take it away with your thoughts on this deck. It did really well against Suicune and the Dark-Tina matchup, especially the Dark-Tina matchup.
Yeah, so like you said, I first saw in the Pokémon tournament where they ended up making Top Cut. Unfortunately, they did lose round 1 in Top Cut, and I took the deck. I made like 2 different changes. I just added Rocky Helmets over Poison Barb, and I had like a Miracle run, bro, where I think I went like 15 and like 4 with it, maybe like 15. I forget exactly, but I actually gained like 150 points with the deck. Obviously, I still think the deck is that good, because a lot of people actually don't even know what Porygon did. So you know how many people misplayed, didn't put the energy on the active Pokemon to attack, and then just ended up conceding. It also played with Tapu Lele, which like synergizes with Porygon, making them place another energy on that Pokemon. So with Tapu Lele, you're usually hitting up to like 60-80 damage, even like stuff like 100-120 on Giratina Darkrai. And like realistically, bro, I think it's a very funny deck. I don't think it's that good, to be honest. I think it can be good, because like going second with it could be actually amazing. Going first is kind of where it like suffers, where I kind of wish I would have a baby Pokemon, but then you need like another key piece to the deck. I would probably put it low tier / C for you, because I probably would rather play this over something like Umbreon, because it actually has done good for me in ranked. But at the end of the day, like I know, like I would love to put this in mid tier, but at the end of the day, I know it's not as good as like I wish it was. But it's a very funny deck as like someone who really loves Porygon, so I'm gonna put it in C.
See, I agree here with that take. Like I said, what really factors in is the matchup knowledge. Nobody really, if you don't have that matchup knowledge, you could easily take advantage. And that's what it really came down to when the deck first started showing up on the ladder after the successful run on the tournament. So That's basically all it really came down to. Players adapted on knowing how to put their energy, where to put, what to call out, or, what to invest everything to. It's just like the weakness to Porygon Z is you build your bench and then you retreat and attack, and having lackluster HP, it's not really that great.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a stage 2, but like only being 130 because of non-EX actually makes like being like, you kind of want to play a giant cave sometimes, but you like need that damage item for like additional damage, because it's only hitting for it's 70, right? I'm pretty sure it's 70. Yeah, so like it's not doing too much damage if you're not using something like a red or that Rocky Helmet / Poison Barb, depending on which item card you are running. But the 130, like all they have to do is just charge up a Giratina in the back, and then you just lose. But, or like, yeah, just some strong attacker. Because obviously the ability only works for the active spot. They could easily swap out and just come in with something else.
Correct.
Funny card, dude. Definitely takes advantage of Pokemon Pocket players not knowing how to read. Alright, dude. We have the LeBron. We already know what deck this is. Darkrai Giratina. I'm just going to put this all the way in S. I think this is very obvious. I don't know how much you actually want to talk about this deck, because it's been doing the same thing for how many seasons now?
Since Shining Revelry.
Yeah, I don't even, what are we on, like season 7 or ranked, dude? Like this deck just does not die. I think the lowest it's ever been was like high tier at like a certain spot in a meta. Double Ori being a factor, like Tapu Koko is kind of annoying for it, but at the end of the day, I guess like it kind of has like a weird like bad matchup into like stuff like Tapu, Flareon, and then the Daycare deck if they high roll. But then they beat Suicune, and it's just consistent. It beats like everything. Has only a couple bad matchups. It's just Darkrai Giratina at the end of the day. I don't know about you, but I feel like we talked about this for 7 seasons.
Yeah, like literally it's just the 4 best Pokemon in the game with all the best supporters and trainers in one deck. That's really what it is. Segueing into our Suicune variants. So I believe the Suicune Oricorio version, this is the one with 1 Oricorio, is actually pretty good, right? I think it's a solid like S tier. The only reason is you have a shield against, Darktina. You have a shield against a bunch of other EX Pokemon that are threats, and most of these decks would try to slow you down with Repel, wasting their only Repel so your Suicune can attack 1 turn, right? But if you prioritize that and then a random Oricorio just drops on the field, you're really in a bad spot. And, it's really unpredictable if you run Ori or not. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the 1 Ori version compared to the, standard one that only plays non-Ori, it basically just, like, Suicune is already the best deck in the game. If you've been watching for the last 2 months, you already know this. Ori basically just makes all the bad matchups not super bad matchups. Like the worst, like 2 worst matchups in like my opinion are probably Darkrai Giratina and then stuff like Guz. Just that 1 Ori is so annoying for both of those decks. It basically turns it even, if not favored, for Suicune. So because you have the Ori, being able to slot in, you just basically make the deck just even better than it already was without playing Ori. Like sometimes, yeah, Ori could be a brick in matchups such as like Suicune mirror matches when they're not playing Ori, but that's always a risk, adding one of those tech cards for the bad matchup. And then we have the pure version that is no Oricorio, but has Giratina. Obviously the Ori one also has Giratina as well. And like I said, for the Ori one, basically this deck is the exact same. It's the best deck in the game. It has everything: Drop Power, Greninja, Cyrus, Irida, the Giratina for that 130 damage. It, sometimes gets sacked by ground cores like Guz and then Darkrai Giratina, if you don't have like the God combo. Although I will say that Suicune players, especially me personally, have gotten way better at the Darkrai Giratina matchup even without Oricorio. So there's like few decks that can beat Suicune. It's just so broken. Because if we think about Wisdom of the Sea and Sky, that is personally my favorite / most balanced meta I think we ever had. Because we had so many good decks. Like, yeah, Espeon and Darkrai Giratina were extremely strong. But we had Guz, we had Buzz, we even had the Flareon versions, we had EV Box. I think we had EV Box. Maybe we didn't. But we just had so many decks. Just Suicune being introduced has shaped up the meta, making so many of those decks such as Buzzwole and Espeon unviable. and basically changing how even stuff like Guz is played. So just the introduction of Suicune, obviously with the power of Greninja, just shows you like if it could shake up the meta with only like, because this is the only real meta deck that kind of like is at that top tier level that has been added in the game because of, you know, with the additions with Wisdom of the Sea and Sky. Or not, I always see Secluded Springs. I think that just shows how broken the deck is. If it can shake up the meta with just one card.
All I gotta say about this deck is I'm on a boat. I'm on a boat. Like, you know, just being able to play, you know, just playing your deck with not playing cards like Oricorio, right? Just playing to your full advantage, full power. Because if you just go all out and you're not playing all these like random Oricorio cards, you're just like being the deck what the deck is designed to do. Just like win fast, be consistent, draw everything you need. So that's pretty much where I'm at when it comes to just the regular version, which I'm a fan of.
Yeah, it's like exactly like it's just a deck that has everything, dude. Like because it has like I said earlier, bro, like it's very similar. I feel like the Buzz, because Buzz I feel like was one of those decks that were called like a deck that has everything, and then Suicune came out and it just has drawing power combined of everything that Buzz did but better.
Just look at what all the other decks that have to do just to compete like below it. So
Exactly.
last but not least, if you play this deck, you're evil. You're just evil. You're an evil. I don't know what happened to you, but you're just evil. But all kidding aside, the deck is just double Oricorio and a Suicune. Like, this deck right here is just overkill in my opinion. Like, yes, it's good in the S tier, but I would put it in the low S tier. Like, out of the 3 decks that are up there, because you have more chances to brick, right? But at the same time, because Suicune mirrors, that's like Greninja food all day. You're invested 2 Oris. Let's just say you're in a scenario you have to put 2 Oris so you could attack for 100 or more damage. I know you have to be conscious of what you drop on the board, but sometimes what if you like only see 2 Oris and a Froakie in the mirror match? You know, it's not even gonna be a Giratina there to, you know, boost you up and have a backup attacker. You just literally, you know, just chilling there hoping you draw, you know, an out, which could be hard sometimes when you brick with this deck. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this deck is like similar to the obviously 1 Ori version. It doesn't have Giratina, so it doesn't have that 130 damage, and we've already talked about stuff like the Simon Nobi, aka just Greninja Oricorio without Suicune, and we put that in mid tier because, you know, it did bad in the Suicune. This is basically kind of just like a better version of it, I would say, depending on the matchups. Like, it is weird. I probably wouldn't put it, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, in the same stuff as like Suicune and then the 1 Oricorio. I probably would put it next to, like, behind Darktina, maybe, because like it has a really good Darktina matchup. Like, you can't do anything as a Darktina player, low-key, dude, unless the Suicune player misplays. Because all they have to do is go aggressive with 1 Suicune, get a KO, and then they just hide behind 2 Oris, and you're not doing anything. It can be weird because you don't have that like high power of Giratina, so even if you do stall behind Oris, if you don't get like a fast Greninja, like the damage will not be there. I personally haven't played him myself, but also, you know, as 1 tournament, it is something that is being played a lot more as of recently. Like, I don't have the immense knowledge because I haven't played it, like I said, myself, to know exactly all the intricacies, but it is definitely still Suicune Greninja at the end of the day with just a little bit more bricks, but it can help in certain matchups that Suicune didn't like. Pretty much. Yeah, I think it's a little bit, it probably is a little bit less consistent than the other 2 versions of Suicune. So I kind of agree with you that like it's not on like their level.
Right. So that's gonna wrap it up for the tier list. Now, like, comment, subscribe, comment what deck you guys are having more success with, or what's your favorite deck of the whole, like, you know, format in general. Any closing words, Sek?
If you guys have different opinions, don't flame us because this is 100% accurate. I'm gonna be 100% real. Nah, but anyways, once again, I just want to thank you, dude, for asking for the collab. This was really lit to be able to do. And I definitely hope, bro, that when the megas come out, the Suicune is dead. That's all I have to say.
Anytime to have you do a collab. And also, yes, I am so sick of this format. I'm ready for something new.